Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. Do another random artist feature, part 2 on Led Zeppelin this time, and I'm going to try to follow up some of the ones I did part 1s, but some of them will go 3 parts possibly or probably. But I have a whole bunch of others that I've now sort of earmarked as priority and going to be in the schedule. So anyway, so I left off with Led Zeppelin 4 or Runes, and of course that was in 70. Now that I have this pulled up, that was in 71. I never thought about 71, but so this was 73. They took a year to do a lot of touring. They put out House of the Holy, of course. Let's see here. My copy is one I bought used. House of the Holy is a very good record. I would probably put it at as high, if not a little bit higher, than Led Zeppelin 4. But the version I've got is just Atlantic pressing. I don't remember if this is the probably an American version. I didn't pay a fortune for it, but I don't even know if this is a first pressing. Cool gatefold, of course, all that stuff, all that good stuff. The artwork of the girls, or the kids rather. But I would say that my favorites on this record, Song Remains the Same is a great tune. Still holds up. I love the crescendo in that piece. Kind of progressive in a lot of respects. The Rain song follows it up, and it was a very contrasting style. And actually, House of the Holy was the first Led Zeppelin album I ever bought. So I actually didn't know exactly what I was in for. But the Rain song is a just beautiful ballad. There's not really too many ballads I've ever heard quite like it. It's slow, but it totally works. Talk Talk. I don't know if the band Talk Talk saw that lyric. I doubt it. Over the Hills and Far Away. That was one of my favorite songs on here initially, and I remember I had an acoustic guitar I got at a flea market for like $30 around that time, around 1991. It was 91 or 92. And my friend in high school and I were trying to sort of like play that song. We failed miserably, of course, but I love the kind of acoustic element that leads up to this dynamic, sort of loud, bombastic almost part by Robert Plant. Many have I loved, yeah, many times been bitten, many times I've gazed along the open road. Yeah, I mean, the lyrics, and there's a lot of I just love that track. That song holds up as opposed to many other Zeppelin songs. So then the Crunch closes off the first side, and the Crunch is a song that I didn't really care for that much originally. I thought it was a little odd, but it grew on me more and more. I always remember that little voiceover, if I'm not mistaken. Where did that confounded bridge, or where did he go with that confounded bridge or something like that? But yeah, it's like in minor keys, and it's very I don't know if it was influenced by sort of funk or R&B at the time, but it was just very odd. Do 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 do. It's very like synth driven, or it was really a synth that John Paul Jones was playing. Maybe it was an organ or some other electronic piece, or if that was something he was doing with his bass. I can't remember. So then the second side 2 is Dancing Days, which I still like that song, but I don't love it. I mean, it's got a catchy part to it, but it's not among my favorites on this record, but it's also not the worst song on this record, and it still holds up to an extent. But it's okay. Then Deermaker, which honestly, that's one of my least favorite Zeppelin songs. I mean, I'd probably rather listen to it over like stuff like Rock and Roll and Black Dog. But that it just grates on me. I mean, when I first got into Zeppelin, I didn't mind it, but it is kind of earwormy, but not necessarily in a good way in the long term. So I would put that one as one of my least favorite, if not my least favorite on this album. Then you go back to No Quarter, which is one of the coolest tracks that Zeppelin ever made. Very, trippy and dark, but that's very much a John Paul Jones piece, and he's like the lead writer. I know Page and Plant also wrote it, but I always think of that song for John Paul Jones. He was playing, I believe, some Mellotron on that, and it almost sounds like Pink Floyd. But then I was doing a little research, and actually, of course, this came before like the Dark Side of the Moon. So I don't know if when Pink Floyd wrote the Dark Side of the Moon, they had heard this, or although if this was 73. Actually, that's not necessarily true. I don't know when the dates exactly of when these were released. House of the Holy came out, according to Rate Your Music, on March 28th, 73. And just to look this up as quickly as I can, because I know 73 was the year that Dark Side came out. Well, it's like one of the top 4 searches on Rate Your Music. Releases. Let's see here. Just as a comparison, I mean, if you were doing albums of the year in 1973, this came out, you know, it doesn't have a, oh, that's not the initial, the primary one. The primary release, that's the German one, of course, pulled up. This thing would load in. What? Holy they came out exactly the same day. Wow, that's almost like in the Court of the Crimson King and Hot Rats. I did not remember that or know that when I was doing my research. So interesting. I guess probably, I don't know, maybe Jonesy was listening to like some metal or some of the other Pink Floyd albums from before that, or maybe vice versa. Maybe Pink Floyd had listened to, I don't know what. But anyway, No Quarter is a great piece and it's very psychedelic. And then of course this album closes out with The Ocean, which is a song that I've liked, and initially when I got into this album and Zeppelin in general, it might have been my earliest favorite Zeppelin song, but I kind of look at it like When the Levee Breaks or Misty Mountain Hop to a point. I kind of wore it out a little bit too much. I still like the little hook, you know, like dun 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 dun, and it's catchy. But I don't know. It's what was a song I revered. I only just kind of like, and I don't know. I probably could revisit it and feel different if I saw it play live again. Anyway, so that's enough about that. Then they released, and I have, of course, Song Remains the Same, which is epic live soundtrack for the film. Here's the gatefold. It has this like photos and stuff like that. And I did see this when I was in high school, I remember. Of course, it has I think I looked it up earlier, 26-minute Dazed and Confused, and that would probably still be the biggest highlight on this album. It has a lot of their standards. Rock and Roll and Black Dog, I believe, is on here, or maybe not. Here's the track list. I have the cassette, because I originally got the cassette version, and I eventually think I got the CD as well. I thought Black Dog was on here. Not that I really think that makes this any better, but the likes of No Quarter, Stairway to Heaven, Song Remains the Same, the Rain song, and then, Moby Dick and Whole Lot of Love. Whole Lot of Love is another song I'm not crazy about. I said in the last video, but yeah, this is a classic live performance / album, because it again initially was for a film, and they released the soundtrack. I always thought the artwork almost looked like a Yellow Submarine kind of thing, with that animated kind of stuff. But anyway, so moving on. Then that was in '74, if I'm not mistaken, or '75. Let me go back to. I'm trying to get my dates aligned. They don't have it listed. They have the live albums separately, and that was '76. I'm off because I'm not putting this in order. Physical Graffiti came out before that film came out, which now I feel stupid. Maybe the film was out and then, I don't know. But anyway, I got my copy of Physical Graffiti and I opened it up just to make things as efficient as I can. But of course it has just like you don't really get it so much on the CD and the cassette versions, but the different, faces in the buildings and stuff like that. This is my favorite Zeppelin record, but it's kind of splitting hairs to a point. But I see this as, because it is a double album, you get more good, you get more material, which makes it a more overall, a greater record. In my version, it's barely been played, but I don't know what pressing it is. It's got the classic Zoso, picture on there on the label. My favorite tracks on this record, it is my favorite album, would be stuff like In the Light, which is a progressive rock masterpiece to me. I love Mellotron on that, and it's just dreamy and trippy. But also stuff like when I saw that tribute band, especially, it reminded me how much I love that song In My Time of Dying. The riff is just awesome on that song. Let's see, 10 Years Gone. The bridge is, I get goosebumps every time I hear the guitar, not the bridge, but the guitar solo in that. Down, 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 down. Yeah, that, I just love that. Down by the Seaside, while I don't love the main verses, the bridge on that one, that sort of almost watery, twangy guitar sound, almost something out of like All Along the Watchtower, how long the one, but Electric Ladyland rather. I love that part of Down by the Seaside. Night Flight was a kind of a classic rock single, and it's catchy and, you know, interesting lyrically, kind of uplifting to a point. Sick Again is another one, not quite as much. I don't like it quite as much as In My Time of Dying, but the riff is kind of similar, but the riff is really just very not headbangable, but just it kind of gets your energy going. And same with stuff like the Wanton song. It's not metal, but it's almost like sped up. I don't know what you call that. It's not early thrash metal, but Boogie with Stu and Black Country Woman. I like them for what they are. I don't hate them. I don't consider them favorites. Neither would be Brawny Hour. Brawny Hour I almost think of with Brawny Hour Stomp from Led Zeppelin 3. I like Brawny Hour Stomp more, but The Rover was one of my first early favorite songs, and I still enjoy that song. It's got, the guitar riff is great, and the lyrics and the vocal melodies from Plant. Trample Underfoot, the organ part or whatever that is. I always think of, it reminds me a lot of the Styx song, I think it's Renegade, and I want to look this up one of these days because I want to find out which one was released first, because Styx released Renegade sometime in the mid-70s as well, I believe. Of course, Kashmir, which is classic, and before I ever got that into Zeppelin, I knew that from the radio, and it's still a great tune, although I almost have come to love Kevin Gilbert's version better. House of the Holy and Custard Pie. House of the Holy, catchy, and I think it was Mr. Superior mentioned how it sounds a lot like Dancing Days, which I wouldn't deny that, but the fact that they named a song after the last album title is interesting. And then Custard Pie, which I used to love Custard Pie and The Rover back to back. Those were just great for opening tracks to an album. I still enjoy The Rover a lot. Custard Pie is just a simple song, but it's still alright. And I also can probably show now, I was going to show this and I didn't when I tried to make this video before, and I got it signed by someone. Well, I got it signed by Portnoy. It looks like I have a tablature book of not just the guitar, but every part from this album. So I got this when I was in high school. It's like, well, this is my favorite Zeppelin album. I want to listen to the album while following along with the tablature. Even though I can't play a lot of these instruments, if I could transpose it to trumpet, maybe I'd have a chance. Anyway, so that was 76. And then 77, that was right around the time, right after that, Robert Plant's son passed away, tragically. I don't remember all the circumstances, but I know this album was important to them, or had reflected that to a point, and that was Presence. And I think that was 77. No, Presence was 76. So Physical Graffiti was 75, Presence was 76. I never remember the exact years on these, but I remember the order. So this is 76. So his son probably passed away sometime in 75 or early 76. Anyway, this has my favorite Led Zeppelin song, and that being Achilles' Last Stand. I think it's just a perfect prog epic. The rest of this record is good, but it's kind of, I don't say it's forgettable, but it's not like they don't have go-to songs as much. The song Nobody's Fault But Mine got played on Classic Rock a lot, and I do enjoy that song, although, I don't know, some days I'll enjoy it, some days I won't. I do like the harmonica on that. That's one part of it that sticks out along the sort of vocal lines that Robert Plant wrote. I can't remember if he played the harmonica or if it was Jones. Anyway. But yeah, songs like For Your Life is okay. I enjoy that. Royal Orleans, Candy Store Rock is playful. Hot On for Nowhere, and T for One. Not Kevin Gilbert's T for One. I probably should revisit this album soon just to remember and reevaluate it. But it's kind of the record I've listened to the least out of all Zeppelin's albums. So then, of course, I'm getting my years right. 79, they put out Into the Outdoor, which, as I've heard, that I don't have the little paper bag that came with it, because I don't know if this version didn't have the paper bag or just wasn't sold with it. But of course, John Paul Jones was kind of almost fronting or in charge of the group at this point. That's why a lot of the songs are rather synth-driven. Not all of them, but In the Evening, of course, has that nice heavy riff. Starts out quiet, and then you know, that sort of, it's almost like coming down. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. And then he goes, I need to love. Yeah, it's, the irony is that song probably got the most airplay. Well, I don't know if it did, but the rest of this album sounds a lot different. All of My Love and, let me go look at the track list. And, was it Fool in the Rain? The piano parts. It's just that the rock element on this album is much less, but I would say the record itself is still very good. And people, you know, give crap to Carousel Ombra, but I happen to love that track. That and I'm Gonna Crawl. Both of them. Terrific songs. They're underrated. And I'd even say Southbound Soiree or Suarez. I think it's Soiree. I think this is underrated. I think this album gets a lot of grief. People don't appreciate it that much, but I would, even though the style's quite different, it's not as like heavy or rocking per se. I would put this alongside all the other records other than Physical Graffiti. I wouldn't say I prefer it to like Led Zeppelin 2 or Led Zeppelin 1, but I also can't say I would put those albums above it, or House of the Holy. Anyway, so I can show the rest of my collection. I have, well, of course I have Coda. They put out Coda, which this is just B-sides, of course. It was released in '82, obviously, after John Bonham had passed away. A lot of pictures there. The gatefold version I've got. But it's, you know, songs like I Can't Quit You Baby was on the Led Zeppelin 1, if I'm not mistaken. And so this is a different version. The songs on here just aren't really... Wearing and Tearing, We're Gonna Groove, I guess those two are alright. Poor Tom, Ozone Baby, Darling. Those are tracks that I honestly don't even remember that well. Only that I don't remember loving them. Walter's Walk and Bonzo's Mantra. Bonzo's Mantra, if I'm a John Bonham drum orchestra, I think it's very percussive. But I also should mention... It's kind of a cool jacket. Should mention the fact that when I got into them in the early 90s, they had released that big, massive box set. And it included a couple extra, like, new tracks. Well, that, and then there was another remasters, which my friend got. But it had two kind of significant songs. Traveling Riverside Blues, which technically was a blues cover, I believe. Their interpretation was awesome. And then Hey Hey What Can I Do, which I love. Both those tracks, there may have been one or two others, but the local classic rock station in town played a lot, so I got to almost thinking, what album are these off of? And in fact, they did a Led Zeppelin A to Z, and I think they included them, but they never were. I remember just, you had to get the box set or get that remasters to get them. Now, I don't know if they released the re-releases at some point, or the I don't know if they included them at some point, but anyway, speaking of unreleased stuff, then eventually, when I've been collecting vinyl, I got this thing called In Through the Outtakes, which doesn't really have much stuff from In Through the Outdoor, ironically, but it has something called Jennings Farm Blues. You can see this is almost like a bootleg. I mean, it probably is. I don't know. It's a bootleg. There's probably literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different bootlegs that have different like live versions and other versions of songs out there, demos and stuff. I mean, of course, the remasters came out again recently, and they had a bunch of demos and stuff like that. But it also has longer versions of some of these songs, or just different versions. Stairway to Heaven, first ever full-length work-in-progress recording of the group's Opus Walter's Walk, some of the stuff from Coda, Poor Tom, Walter's Walk, Trampled Underfoot, a work-in-progress version, Custard Pie, and Black Dog, all those, you know, Babe I'm Gonna Leave You, the outtake sessions from Led Zeppelin, the first album, and Since I've Been Loving You. So, the other thing I'm going to show just quickly, I'll show two things. This is the first, before I got the Physical Graffiti book, I got this book, and this is just basic. I think this is just basic tablature when I had that acoustic guitar, and it doesn't have all of my favorite songs, but it's got some of the better ones on it. If you look at the track list, the song list rather, it's not a track list. Over the Hills and Far Away, Out on the Tiles, Song Remains the Same, That's the Way, Your Time Is Gonna Come. It's got the crunge, actually. Black Mountainside, The Battle of Evermore, you know, although the guitar parts aren't amazing, it's more like mandolin on that. And Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You. So a lot of the more popular tracks, it doesn't have a lot of the deeper tracks. There's no Achilles Last Stand on here, or In the Light, of course. That's why I wanted to get the Physical Graffiti one, because it didn't have any of those. So, but yeah, then I have this like Robert Plant picture disc. So, which I think it's an interview. Yeah, it's an interview. And of course, after Zeppelin ended, basically the members have done other things. Robert Plant, some of his solo work in the 80s I do enjoy, although I don't have too much of it. In fact, I remember getting 29 Palms a single. That was in the early 90s when I was working at Sam Goody. And, well, I'm just going to close that later. But, yeah, and Jimmy Page had The Firm, and of course they did No Quarter, which I was okay about. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. I mean, I didn't even see the tour. That's my bone regret. I've never seen any of those Led Zeppelin guys except John Paul Jones. John Paul Jones, I saw him open for King Crimson in 2001. Very cool. He played a lot of slide guitar and stuff. But of course, he's got that Them Crooked Vultures, which I'm not a fan of Dave Grohl. Otherwise, I probably would have been all over that. But I probably haven't heard enough of it to really know if I care for it or not. But anyway, so that's my take on Led Zeppelin. More of these coming up. But thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you like this.